Obviously it's early here. It's Phil from Snoworks, and a very good morning to you. I'm coming directly from Teen in the Tarentaise Valley here. I'm just checking that everything's working okay. Yes, we are live, so that's absolutely fantastic. We're live. We are coming live directly from the Tarentaise Valley. You can see behind me in the mountains there, we've still got loads of snow, which is absolutely fantastic. We just can't get to it. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's not much skiing, but that hasn't stopped us talking about it. And we love to talk about skiing here at Snoworks. We are live, so welcome if you just joined us. I did a webinar late last week on Go Open or Skiing Open, which is one of the bedrocks of the Snoworks philosophies and all mountain skiing. So we thought we'd move on to another bedrock of all mountain skiing, which is something that we term snow displacement. It's a term fairly unique to Snoworks. Many other ski course organisations may use similar terms, which I will discuss during this webinar. But to begin with, let's talk about snow displacement. It's quite windy out here today, so if my notes suddenly get blown behind me, I may have to disappear just to grab them quickly. But snow. Let's talk about snow first of all, because as everybody knows, snow is something that we need to ski, or something like snow. We've got numerous imitations of snow which have done a fantastic job. The artificial ski slopes. I myself started on an artificial ski slope. I started with a material called ski mat, which is like a plastic molded material with bristles sticking out, and all the bristles would move. And then we moved on to what became the #1 selling material in the world for artificial ski slopes, which was Dendex. There are some other materials out now. And then artificial snow, obviously we have the artificial snow and all the artificial snow dams. But snow, what an amazing substance snow is. Absolutely amazing. Quite often I don't think we really look into quite how incredible snow is. There are two properties of snow which are massively important for us. One is it's slippery, and two is it moves. Now we take those two things for granted. It's slippery and it moves. The other substances are also slippery and move, but not quite to the same extent snow does. In some situations, snow isn't so slippery and it's harder to move. So we're going to talk about that later on, such as ice. Ice is pretty hard to move, as we know. Crud, heavy off-piste snow, slush. So there are types of snow, or as snow transformed, which makes it a bit more difficult to move, but we can still move it, and that's what we're here to talk about, what we've termed snow displacement. So I suppose I should really tell a story about how we actually got into snow displacement, and then we'll move on to some of the other subjects that I've mentioned a bit later on in this webinar. So how did we at Snoworks get into snow displacement? As I mentioned in that Go Open or Ski Open chat, there are moments in your life that change your way of thinking completely, and from those moments you move into a completely different direction. You don't know where it's going to take you, but you know you're never going to do the same again. And I've had numerous moments which have made me rethink how I think about skiing, and also helped us as a team develop skiing and ski performance in all mountain conditions. So now, if I remember back many years ago, it must have been 30 years ago, and I had come through the BASI, British Association of Snow Sports Instructors exams, and Snow Sports England Coaching Award scheme. So I had been trained as an instructor and as a coach, and I skied like what I would term an instructor or a coach. But I remember vividly this one event. I was in Avoriaz with a great friend of mine, Ian McKellar. If you're watching, Ian, welcome. So Ian McKellar, a great friend of mine. I don't know if he remembers this. I'm sure he will. It was New Year's Day. I was there by myself. I bumped into him and I said, come on, let's go for lunch. It was around about midday. And we stopped in a restaurant at the top of Londeray Valley, if anybody knows that, up in just on the other side of Avoriaz, on the way to Châtel, a place called Londeray Valley. I was in Londeray Valley and we had stopped for lunch. It was New Year's Day, a massive lunch, and of course New Year's Day is the one time I allow myself to have a few drinks. And on the table next to us was a group of other skiers. We got chatting to them and the drinks started to flow, more wine. I even think it was snowing quite heavily outside. And this was just a group of holiday skiers on the table next to us, and the banter got quite friendly and we had a lot of fun. Anyway, we put our skis on, we all went outside, we put our skis on, and then of course it was a race to the bottom of Londres Valley. There was nobody on the slopes, and at that time, remember, I was young then, this is 30 years ago, and I believed I skied pretty well. I was an international ski instructor at the top of my career, and so last down buys the next round of drinks. So off we shot, myself and Ian. We head off down the slope on the edges of our skis as fast as I could possibly ski. As I'm saying, the piste were empty. It was in the afternoon, it was snowing quite heavily, and I thought I was skiing pretty fast. Safely, of course, but pretty fast. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this guy just come straight past me, perfectly in control. Again, like I mentioned with that Ski Open chat the other day, doing everything that I thought you mustn't do. Bolt upright, skis close together, slightly on his heels, just moving his tails from side to side, and he went flying past me whilst I was doing this beautiful calf test. I thought, what is going on? I looked at Ian, he looked at me and went, oh my word, this guy has just beaten us down the slope. 2 international ski instructors and some guy on holiday is skiing faster than we are, and probably with more control as well. And that got me thinking, what is he doing? And so I started to think about, there must be things that people are doing that I've not been trained to do. And we started to move into this area called snow displacement. But still, I wasn't truly on board with it, didn't quite understand it myself. And you're going to laugh at me because it's so ridiculously simple. What is snow displacement? And then a few years after that event, I was out skiing in Verbier, again another key moment in my career which changed how I think about skiing. I had a very high level group. We were skiing off-piste in Verbier in the trees. Again, it was snowing heavily, there was a lot of snow, loose snow around, it was steep, it was windy, the most variable conditions you could possibly get. And we were skiing sort of knee to thigh deep powder. It was tracked out, it was light, it was heavy. It was the most open environment I could possibly ask for. And the guys were struggling a little bit, and they were asking me for feedback. Come on, Phil, you've got to have something that we can do. How do we get better in these conditions? And I was saying, well, guys, you've got to go open. That was my key word. But what does that mean? What does go open mean? I said, well, you know, you got the skills, you got your rotary, your twisting control skills, you got your pressure control skills, you got your edge control skills. What should we be using, they asked. Well, it's a whole mixture of each. It's all infinitely variable. Well, how does it all fit together? I said, I can't tell you that. It's impossible to say how we ski. It's like me, as I mentioned the other day in the last webinar. How do you describe somebody carrying a tray of drinks through a crowded bar? You can't. It's impossible. It's impossible to describe. You just got to do this stuff and get down. And they kept saying to me, Phil, you've got to give us something else, something that will help us. I said, sorry guys, I can't. You just got to get stuck in, bit of rotation, a bit of pressure, a bit of edge control, mix it all up and just do your best. Anyway, that wasn't good enough. They needed something more. So we started to try to find a common thread which would run through everything we were doing. We couldn't talk about twisting or pressure control or edge control because it was too infinite. The environment was too variable, so we didn't quite know how all that fitted together. So as a group we discussed this and we came up with the one consistent thread that runs through everything is speed control. And with that, line. Where do you want to go and what speed do you want to ski at? Line and speed. Now, for anybody that's involved in Basie, you know these two key things are right at the top of the fundamental elements, what we call the fundamental elements: control of speed, control of line. They underlie everything. So we latched onto speed control. And then whatever we're doing, whether it's rotary, pressure control, edge control, we need to control our speed. And then as a group, we started to discuss how to control speed. How do you control speed in this environment? What is the one thing which is consistent all the way through? No matter what type of snow we're in, no matter what line we're taking, no matter the depth of the snow, whether it's tracked out, the quality, the texture of the snow, what is the consistent? Now again, another moment. If you're a ski instructor, or if you've been taught by ski instructors, we do talk about speed control, but it's normally, speed control is often described as what I remember vividly from my early days as finishing your turn. In other words, you come round the turn and head back up the slope. Okay, what we then termed at a later date curve length. So you control your speed by coming round a curve and back up the slope, curve length. There is also another form of skidding which is taught in ski school and in ski instructor syllabus, which is skidding, going sideways with your skis, sideways across the snow, skidding. So we've got these two forms of speed control, taking a curve and coming back up the slope, or skidding sideways. But it was clear neither of these would work in this environment. Why? If you skid, you would trip over, there was too much snow, and if you go round back up the slope, you'll probably end up skiing into a tree. So we had to come up with something which was consistent the whole way through. And there was a guy in my group, I remember him vividly, and the name has just disappeared, but it will come back to me in a minute. But he said, well, what are we doing with the snow? I said, well, we're sort of moving it. We're moving the snow with our skis, shoving it, pushing it, moving it with our skis. So we tried to think of a term that would more or less cater for everything we did with the snow. And I'd love to say it was my idea, but this one member of my group, one of my guests, one of the members of my group came up with the term snow displacement. And it's stuck ever since. Of course, that's exactly what it is. We're moving snow, we're displacing snow. In that situation, we were going off big jumps, we were landing in deep snow, we were moving snow with our shins, with our chest, with our waist, we were moving snow with the base of our skis, there was ice, we were moving snow with the edges. So snow displacement stuck. And from that day, we've integrated it into how we teach all mountain skiing. So snow displacement is exactly that, moving snow. Now you may well be saying, well, that's nothing new. And no, it is nothing new. Everybody that skis moves snow with their skis. You have to. Just look up the mountain and watch people skiing. And every time they change direction, slow down, change direction, you will see snow spraying up. So we started to get into snow displacement in a big way. It was required for what we're doing, skiing in an open environment. So the great thing about snow displacement is you can control it. Now this is what I like to call the subconscious skill, the unseen skill. People are doing it all the time, but they may not even realize they're doing it because the focus is elsewhere. Now, let's go back. We've already spoken about speed control, and I've talked about snow displacement. So let's talk about speed control. When we ask our guests that come on our courses for the first time, how do you control speed? I would say 99% of people that come on our courses for the first time would say turn. You control speed by turning. Now that's pretty hairy. That's pretty hairy. Okay, it's a bit like me riding a bicycle, going too fast and turning the handlebars to try to slow down. Of course, we don't do that. We have handlebars, but we have another mechanism for speed control, which are brakes. In a vehicle, in a car, we have brakes. We don't turn to slow down. So skiing has this image that we have to use turning to slow down. Now I've already mentioned, and you can do, that is the case. I can go around the corner, back up the hill, and of course, as I come back up the hill, I can control my speed. But a lot of the time, we can't do that. Bumps, narrow slopes, gullies, couloirs. I haven't got enough space to go round and back up the slope. If I'm skiing bumps, there's no space to go back up the slope. So I have to have another mechanism of speed control. Okay, and that is snow displacement. It's using brakes. Now, think of your bicycle. You've got your handlebars to turn, but you've got your brakes to control speed. So let's just get into snow displacement a little bit more. You've got brakes that control speed, and for a braking action to work, you need to have two surfaces. And on a bicycle, it's the rubber pads. If you're on a standard caliper system, the rubber pads, the rubber brake pads, and the rim of the bike. And those two have to work together. And one has to give. One is made of a material that gives, and that happens to be the brake pad. It gives. It's made of a material that can wear away, that can give, and then you've got the rim of the wheel. Of course, we have the same thing in skiing. We've got two surfaces that have to work together, and for us, for the majority of the time, it's our edges and the surface of the snow. The edges are hard, so that's the equivalent of the rim of the wheel of the bike, and the snow is soft, the equivalent of the pads on your bicycle, the brake pads. So we've got edges and snow. Snow gives. Okay, the edges don't. They're made of a solid material. Of course, when we get into deeper snow, we've got the base of our ski that we can use to move the snow. Okay, so the base of the ski and the snow has to move. Now, we can look at this in a lot more detail, and at Snoworks we've really got into it. So you can adjust how much snow you move, you can adjust how quickly you move snow, you can adjust the direction you move snow in. So you've got a few things there: the amount of snow, how quickly you move snow, how long you move the snow for, and the direction you move snow. So for the majority of skiers, they will be doing this very, very skillfully. But if you're struggling in particular conditions, you may want to think about this. You may want to look at it. Am I moving the right amount of snow? Now, it's quite simple, isn't it? You move around the right amount of snow, you will be able to control your speed. You don't, you either go too fast or too slow. Now, what would you consider to be the number one priority of the majority of skiers skiing in the mountains? It's speed control and directional control. So we've got to get into this. We have to get into the ability to move snow. Now, if you've not heard of this before, why not? Because everybody talks about speed control. Every ski instructor you ever ski will talk about speed control. So they may use different terms. So you have to think about that. Are they talking about the same thing, just using a different term? I mentioned before in my training we used skidding, a lot of skidding. Okay, there are many skiers that have the perception that you mustn't skid when you're skiing. Of course, if you can't skid, how do you control speed? If you cannot skid, how do you control speed? The only option you've got is to go round and back up the hill. And of course, that will limit your possibilities in much of the terrain on the mountain. So skidding is a key skill. However, skidding is quite tricky if you're in deep snow, as every intermediate as every intermediate skier knows. One of the key things that intermediate skiers struggle in is soft snow, because one, going round and back up the hill means that you have to go at the speed that the ski wants to take you, which is scary. Two, if you're skidding sideways in soft snow, you're going to trip over. So we've got a key issue here for many intermediate skiers, which is soft snow, slush, fresh snow, etc. So we like to term snow displacement, I suppose you could call it strength-based skidding. That's what we talked about in the past on our courses, strength-based skidding. Whereas a lot of people, they consider a skid, if you turn your skis, you just go sideways under your speed. But you're going to trip over in soft snow if you do that. So we use our muscles to push the ski sideways. So it's a muscular skid. You're creating a skid using your muscles. And you have seriously strong muscles which you can use to displace snow. Some of the biggest muscle groups in the body, you've got your thighs, your quadriceps, your hamstrings and your quads, hugely strong muscles. You've got your glutes, are massively strong. So you've got big, strong muscle groups here. And remember, all we have to do is push the snow sideways. So it's not a big thing. you push the snow sideways and you can control your speed. So if you've not heard of it before, I can guarantee you're doing it. If you don't think people have taught it before, I can guarantee they will have taught it, but may use different terms like skidding or pushing or shoving, etc, etc. So if you can get into it, your speed control is going to improve massively. Now there's not much snow I can't push. So the one key thing when you get into off-piste or you're looking down a mountain, look down that slope, look at the snow and think to yourself, can I move it with either the edge of my ski, or if you're in deep snow, with the base of my ski? Can I move the snow? And if the answer is yes, you can ski it. If the answer is no, then you can't ski it. How can you ski snow that you can't move? It's impossible. Well, you might be able to ski it, but you certainly won't be able to control your descent. To control your descent, the snow has to move. Okay, so that's for intermediate skiers where it's just snowed or there's a bit of slush around. Get the base of your ski, get the edge of the ski, use those muscle groups, the quadriceps, the glutes, and just push the snow sideways and control your speed. Now let's get into some of those situations which are really tricky. Okay, deep snow. Now that is the same thing. It's the same thing. If you want to learn to ski off-piste, or if you're struggling off-piste, it's probably because you're not actively working with the snow. You're trying to perform some kind of technique rather than move the snow. Once you get into snow displacement, there's not much snow that you can't ski. In fact, for my level or people at my level, we can ski any type of snow because we can push it, we can move it sideways. So there's no snow that we cannot ski. None. Doesn't exist. Okay, so look down that mountain. Can you move the snow? And then in off-piste you get the base of your ski or the base of your skis, whether you prefer to ski one-footed or two-footed, that is a personal preference, and you push the snow sideways, and then you can accurately control your speed. Now a word of warning here and a safety point which is absolutely key. Why are we getting so many accidents? Okay, I couldn't find a ski pole, but I've got a broom. So imagine this broom handle is your ski and this, my hand, is your foot. Easy to turn. It's easy to turn because there's no resistance anywhere. No resistance at all. So that is somebody skiing down the mountain, making a turning action with their skis. Now, you're about to go into off-piste or slush or deep snow. Freddie, come over here a second. I'm going to use my partner for this. Just jump off your bike, Freddie. Okay, come and hold this broomstick for me, just with one hand. Imagine, put your hand over there. Imagine that's your foot. This is Freddie, one of my sons. Imagine that's your foot. Imagine this is a ski, and just turn it like that. Okay, easy to do. You can see a turning action is very easy to make, providing there's not much resistance against the turning. Now, Freddie is quite strong. He works out every day. It doesn't need much at all. I'm going to put my little finger at that end. You come around this way, Freddie, so everybody can see. I'm going to put my little finger at that end. I'm going to put my little finger at that end. Now try to turn the broom. It's impossible, isn't it? Absolutely impossible. And that is just my little finger stopping the power of his biceps and triceps turning this broom. Come on, give it another go. Now, look carefully. The broom doesn't turn. If that was a ski, it doesn't turn. But what does turn? Can you see? It's Freddie's elbow. Look, let me just hold the end again. One finger on each end. Okay. So you can see his elbow turning, but not the ski. Now, if he was on skis, that would be his knee. Okay, so we've got a big safety factor here. If you try to turn, thanks Freddie, and get back to your bike. If you try to turn your skis in heavy snow, you stand a risk of a knee injury. And as we know, there are a lot of knee injuries in skiing. Now, it's possible to turn your skis in heavy snow, but it requires strong muscles. You need to protect the knee joints, and you can use what we call a strength of rotation. So you have to be physically strong, and there are situations like deep snow and couloirs where you're going to have to physically turn your skis. Now, it's possible to jump out, turn the skis, land again, but still you're going to have to control the rotary, the twisting action with your skis. So from a safety point of view, pushing snow, it keeps the leg in alignment, keeps the knee in alignment, boom, okay, very, very powerful. Imagine you kicking a door open, you get the foot and you extend the leg, very, very powerful. You can kick a door open, okay. Imagine a punch, okay, again a powerful punch. Everything is in alignment. So this is very similar to a kick or a punch, where you're keeping your legs, your knee joints in alignment with your ankle and hip, and you can push the snow. And what we would use is an extension there, an extension. Okay? So this conflicts with quite a lot of people that in the early stages of skiing have learned to flex. Okay, and then we're taking people into quite demanding conditions, heavy, deep snow, where we're teaching people to extend. An extension of the leg is very, very powerful. Let's look at another key area in skiing that people are always asking me how to ski, and that is ice. Of course, there's no snow to displace. So how do you ski ice if there's nothing to displace? The answer is, if you can't move it, you can't ski it. Well, you certainly can't ski it in control. You can slither over it, you can go straight over it, you can slip sideways over it, but you will just keep picking up speed until you find snow that you can displace. Now, going back in time, I remember a long time ago, that's how we used to teach people to ski ice. Skid across it, skid across and look for some snow that you can move, softer snow that actually gives a little bit. But with snow displacement, we had to get into that area as well, because skiing off-piste, we find some very icy conditions. It's not all just powder. So you can ski ice, you can control your speed on ice, you can slow down on ice, you can dictate where you're going to go on ice, but you need to displace the top surface of the ice, which means you need to grab your edge, grab the edge of your ski and physically move the top layer of ice. Move that top layer of ice. So it's going to make it icier for the next person behind you, and so on and so on and so on and so on. But to actually control your speed and control the direction you're going, if you want to truly ski ice, grab the edge of your ski and displace and move the top layer of ice with the edge of your ski. Easy to say, not easy to do, as everybody knows. What do you need? You need good edges. Okay, you've got to have a good set of edges. So when everybody's laughing at us, sharpening the edges of our skis all the time, that is why we're doing it. And if you're a racer, you know how important your edges are. Okay, absolutely important. Your racers' ski edges are razor sharp, because they are, these days especially, are skiing ice. A lot, and seriously hard ice, and they've got to be able to displace the top surface of the ice with the edge of the ski. Now in racing, you would more or less certainly sharpen your edges for every day you go out if you're race training, and in a race your edges will be sharpened for every single run, probably, if it's icy conditions. So that's how important it is. Skis are stiffer, so you can use your edges better to displace the ice. So if you're struggling on ice, the first thing is to get your edges sharp, check how stiff your skis are. If there's a very soft ski, it probably won't be that easy to displace the surface of the snow, but you'll be able to feel it, you'll be able to work it out. But grab the edge of your ski and work hard to move the top layer of ice. Now I've done this with blunt skis as well, and I'm surprised at the control that with determination and effort you can get skiing ice. Now that may come as a bit of a shock to people. I've heard people talking about flattening their skis and skidding across the ice. Of course you can do that. Yeah, it's possible to do that. Flatten and skid. You're not moving any snow, but you won't be controlling your descent, you'll just be sliding downhill until you get onto some snow that you can slide on. So it can be useful, skidding sideways. Don't forget, this is a skid that we're talking about here, but it's a strength-based skid. So getting the edge of your ski and pushing it sideways is still a skid, but it's a strength-based skid. Okay, so that's ice. So we've got soft snow, we've got ice. Okay, where else do people struggle to control speed? Bumps. Absolutely key. Bumps, why? Because there's no space. how do you control speed when there's no space to control speed? So it's one of those skills that people will just pick up subconsciously if they ski enough bumps. Okay? And it's unbelievably skillful. Now, if you watch a bump skier skiing down the mountain through a mogul field, they will have the most unbelievable control over snow displacement. Unbelievable. But of course we don't see it. Why? Because it's at the ski to snow contact level is where the control is happening. So if we're not careful, we'll be drawn to other things like their style, like the way that they're carrying their posture, their body. But look at what they're doing with their skis. So we're talking about, if I lost you for a minute, we're talking about bump skiing. How on earth do you control speed in bumps? With such tight areas, you've only got a small section. The answer is the same. You've got to displace snow. You've got to move snow with your skis. Whether you want to call it skidding, snow displacement, momentum-based skidding, whatever we call it, it doesn't matter. We've got to be moving snow with the edges of our skis. Now, the key issue here is it takes time to learn this. So you've got to get into moguls where there's enough space for you to be able to move the snow. Whether you move the snow down the back of the mogul or in between the moguls, on the top of the mogul, going up a mogul, it's up to you. It doesn't really matter, because the key is move the right amount of snow, you'll control your speed. Don't move the right amount of snow, you won't control your speed. So it becomes incredibly skillful. So for example, if I've got moguls and there's 1 meter of space between the moguls, I've got 1 meter of space to displace enough snow to control my speed. I go into the next mogul and there's 1/2 meter. I've now got 1/2 meter to displace snow. So you have to find places in mogul fields where, in between the moguls, where you can use the edges of your skis to move the snow that is required. And that takes skill. Obviously you've got other skills going on at the same time, balancing skills, using your poles, twisting skills, and so on and so on. But it's snow displacement that will get you down the mogul field. Okay, I'm gonna just move on to wrap up with snow displacement. There's one other thing. Sometimes people call this something else. In Basie you have what we call pressure, the skills of skiing, the 3 skills of skiing: pressure control, edge control, and control of rotation. So where does snow displacement fit in there? Edge control, pressure control, control of rotation. Okay, well, it can be a mixture of the 3, depending on how you're using those 3: edging, pressure, and twisting or rotation. We've tended to put it in towards pressure control, okay, and we've changed the name to pushing, so we use the term pushing. We also use pressure control because we get a lot of skiers talking about pushing or pressure, and they say, well, I'm pushing but I'm not slowing down. Of course, because if your ski is on its edge, you could be pushing it, but if you're not moving the snow, you won't be slowing down. You could be giving it all the strength you possess but not slowing down. The snow has to move sideways for you to control your speed. The snow has to move. So that's why pressure control could be different to pushing. Okay, because I can keep the ski edge where it is, you see, and I can literally control the pressure on the ski but not necessarily move snow. So the 2 things are slightly different. And at this point I have to say a huge thank you. Another moment in my career as a ski instructor which changed everything I thought about skiing was a good friend of mine, a chap called Brian Fern. Many years ago I was making a film called Ultimate Control, and I was talking about pressure control. He said, Phil, this is not pressure control, that's something else. This is moving snow. This is where the edge of the ski is going sideways. Okay, you're moving snow. So it's different to pressure control. So if you're thinking that you are pushing but not controlling your speed, it's because you're pushing on the edge of the ski rather than displacing snow. The whole key thing here is displacing snow. Now, as ski instructors, you may think we don't want that, because ski instructors exams or ski instructor training is often based behind ski racing. So a lot of ski racing, that's the history of ski instructor exams. It came from ski racing. And of course, ski racers make curves with their skis. So ski instructor exams tend to go along a similar pathway to ski racing, whereas you go round and back up a curve, round and back up a curve, round and back up a curve. So that comes back to how I started, controlling speed by what we called curve length, which is fantastic. And don't let that go. It's absolutely great. If you've got space and you've got space to go around the curve and back up the hill, fantastic. So what we're talking about is the places where you don't have that room, you don't have the environment which allows you to make a curve, skiing trees off pit, in between trees off piste, moguls, you can't make curves in moguls, they're very close together, narrow gullies, couloirs, okay, crowded slopes, all these areas where people struggle, and that's where snow displacement comes in. So I can take a direct line down if I want to, I can move the snow sideways, and I can control my speed. Combine snow displacement with all the other skills and you will have ultimate control over your speed in all conditions. Ultimate control. Now that is worth okay. You can see the wind has seriously picked up here. It's still a wonderful day, but I'm going to have to stop there because I think my computer's going to get blown away any minute now. So send us any questions, drop us a note, go on to our website. We've got blogs on snow displacement. I said nothing controversial there. Snow displacement is a key skill in skiing which can be mixed in with all the other skills we need to develop. I'll be looking forward to our next webinar. Go onto the website, search for snow displacement or speed control, and there's quite a few blogs we've got written on the subject. Move snow. One thing to leave you with, if you can move it, you can ski it. Thank you for joining us.